We all have something that we know is unhealthy for us, and yet we can't help but to indulge in it. Just think about it. A fat, juicy burger with a side of fries and soda. That burger is just staring into your soul, the tender patty oozing its juices into your mouth as you take a bite. It's filled with an irresistible beefy taste. You take a sip from your straw, the mix of syrup and carbonation from the soda resets your palate, and those crispy fries cackling in your mouth as you munch on them. You know having too much of it is unhealthy, but goddamn is it delicious. And I guess the same can be said for an anime. An anime you fully know is absolute garbage, bottom of the barrel, slop that's hanging on to dear life, and yet you can't help but to not look away and watch the events unfold. It's a concept everybody who's ever consumed anything is aware of. A guilty pleasure. Throughout the years, I've watched many animes, and quite a vocal minority of them stood out. They were objectively below average shows, that I will admit, but it resonated with a part of me nonetheless. Whether it was a melodramatic slop that quenched my thirst for tea, a romance filled with childish worries that gave me nostalgia, or dark shows for the edgelord inside of me. I had many shows I had considered my guilty pleasures, but there's one anime that stands above all my guilty pleasures. It's a deceptively provocative anime that masquerades itself as an innocent teenage love story, paired with themes of adolescent struggle and a school slice of life. I expected there to be some level of drama, as you would expect from these type of shows, which did happen until it devolved into something else entirely. The show quickly spirals into a gargantuan breeding ground of immorality and, quite frankly, an absolute dumpster fire of an anime that makes you question your life. This anime, my greatest guilty pleasure, is none other than School Days. The show is a disaster, my kind of disaster, and this is my cry for help. School Days. At first glance, it's like your typical romance anime, but you'd be mistaken. But for the sake of progression, we'll get there eventually. The anime follows our protagonist Makoto Itou, a typical high schooler who, on the start of the second school semester, finds himself crushing on a girl from a different class by the name of Kotonoha Katsura. There is a rumor and legend that says that if someone sets their wallpaper to a picture of their crush, within a few weeks, if it had not been discovered by that same person, they will end up together. Makoto, who commutes to school by train, notices that Kotonoha also takes the same line, and one day he secretly takes a photo of her and made this his wallpaper, which is totally not creepy, by the way. Simple enough, right? A somewhat cute premise and a love story. What on earth could ever happen? Of course, like many romance animes, there's bound to be a love triangle. Our second heroine, Sekai Saionji, is a classmate of Makoto who sits beside him and happens to see the photo of his crush and decides to play matchmaker. This revelation came as Sekai harbors secret feelings for Makoto, and thus a love triangle forms between these three characters, Makoto, Kotonoha, and Sekai. These three characters are the core pairing of the show. Even with all the things that happen, it'll start and end with them. Alright, fine, there's a love triangle. That's pretty standard. So what? Well, if you've clicked on this video, you probably already know. But if you don't, and you don't mind spoilers, please follow along. It's honestly baffling how deceptive the first 3 episodes of School Days are. It sets the pace and gives you this false sense of security, like, oh, maybe this is just a normal romance anime. Wrong. Things start off small, Sekai conveniently sitting beside Makoto, deciding she's going to set these two up. Immediately, this screams ulterior motives. She befriends Kotonoha, plays matchmaker, and the three of them have lunch together. This whole setup is so awkward, it's physically hard to sit through. Not because of the tension, but because of how laughably pathetic Makoto was the entire time. This man was holding onto dear life like a beached whale. His stammering and over-dramatization made him look more desperate than a beggar on the streets. And by some twisted miracle, Makoto and Kotonoha get together after he confesses his feelings for her. And for a brief moment, you think maybe this anime will be cute and wholesome. Yeah, until this wretch named Sekai decides to kamikaze greater than Pearl Harbor by stealing Makoto's first kiss. And that's the thing about School Days. it doesn't just escalate, it free falls off of a cliff. Sekai kissing Makoto triggers this butterfly effect of jealousy, betrayal, lust, and drama where every single character becomes the worst version of themselves. Granted, Sekai is the lesser of two evils compared to Makoto, but she deserved everything that came to her later in the show. Makoto though, this man went from zero to demon spawn in record time. Like, let me explain the type of person Makoto is so that you understand why this Ash Ketchum looking ass went down in history as one of the most hated characters in all of anime. Not 10 minutes into the episode after he and Kotonoha started dating, bro doesn't even let the ink dry on the relationship before puckering up like he's speedrunning 90 Day Fiancé. Wrong place, wrong time, wrong everything, my guy. You can't just jump straight to kissing because you feel like it. Boundaries, maybe a conversation first. But no, this man treats relationships like they come with a tutorial skip button, and it just keeps happening. Makoto is so pushy and impatient that Kotonoha repeatedly gets overwhelmed and runs off, which only makes things worse because he then acts like she's the problem. Like, no bro, you are built like the problem. Even before this whole dating stuff, he corners Sekai for assuming that she was going to tell everyone about his crush like it's some sort of earth-shattering revelation. After he and Kotonoha made up and actually established these boundaries, this man calls up Sekai and goes, "I'm getting bored of Kotonoha." Bored because you can't get to third base mere days into the relationship? And of course he follows through in the only way Makoto knows how, by cheating on Kotonoha with Sekai. But not before Sekai suggested that they practice. Of course, when she mentions practice, she's talking about exploring the human body. And the wildest part, this whole practice nonsense just proves that Makoto isn't thinking about love, commitment, or anything meaningful. All his worries about his relationship with Kotonoha is how frustrated he is after not being able to do the birds and the bees with her. This, mind you, comes after the fact that Sekai had been edging him on the entire time. Like, at this point, I'm not even convinced he is romantically interested in even Sekai at all. No one does. And like with every school anime, there's always the school culture festival. And this is where School Days officially leaves the stratosphere of reason. Not only does Sekai and Makoto have an affair, Makoto turns into an absolute menace to society. School Days says, alright, let's make this the biggest dumpster fire the world will ever see. And they delivered. Makoto's bouncing between girls like he's on a 100% completionist run. Sekai's acting like they're officially a couple now. Kotonoha's clinging onto hope like it's her last lifeline. And Makoto's out here dodging accountability like it's the bubonic plague. He never formally breaks up with Kotonoha. Not once. He just keeps ghosting her, avoiding questions, giving the world's most vaguest answers, almost like he's trying to keep Kotonoha as a backup. And there's this quote-unquote break room. I'm not joking when I say School Days has left the stratosphere of reason. This is apparently a full-on tradition where students bring their crush to make memories. And by memories, I mean exactly what you think I mean. It goes a little something like this. You go around the school festival with your crush, extend your hand with protection, and if they accept, both of you head into this quote-unquote break room to do the deed. What the f going on? I swear the production team gathered all the writers with different ideas into one room, and this was the end result. This plotline is straight out of a college group project that incorporates everyone's input, no questions asked. The most infuriating thing about this is that Kotonoha's class essentially forces her to be in charge of showing people to the break room. She doesn't want to, but she gets pushed into it anyways, ultimately being the one to take the blame if the whole operation gets exposed. If this isn't psychological warfare, I don't know what is. But of course, it gets worse. There's a secret camera in the break room, because of course there is. And what happens when this gets revealed? Oh, nothing major, just footage of Makoto cheating yet again, this time with his friend from middle school, Otome. Sekai sees the footage and all hell breaks loose and the love polygon implodes. The anime just stops giving a f, and Makoto starts sleeping with everyone in school. Like, things started off small, an angsty romance, some awkward tension sprinkled in for flavor, but somewhere along the way, School Days decides that subtlety is for cowards. What began as your standard high school romance rapidly mutates into this unhinged soap opera that transformed a love triangle into a breeding ground for sexual immorality. At what point did the drama between the original trio start to involve the entire school? The pacing doesn't just pick up, it sprints headfirst into chaos, tripping over itself on the way down, and drags you along whether you like it or not. And Through all this, Makoto has the gall, the audacity to act like none of this is his fault. He gives no explanations, no apologies, no accountability, just keeps dodging responsibility, shrugging off the emotional fallout while two girls emotionally disintegrate because of him. It's quite amazing how I was able to sit down and watch this anime. It's even more disturbing that I loved every single second of it. Sometimes I wonder if I'm just a masochist because there's no way someone would sit down the way I did, watch School Days, and unironically come out thinking it was the second coming of Christ. In what world does that happen? At some point, I started to conflate hatred with love and love with hatred. Given the absolute monstrosity of its characters, I felt nothing but contempt and recall cursing at my monitor in a fit of anger. By all rational means, I hated this anime with a burning passion. So, how does that translate into liking this anime? It doesn't. Like I said, this video is my cry for help. By all means, this anime was a dumpster fire. It started as a cute romance, one I was very invested in, but the cracks started to form. It was like an emotional roller coaster, as things I once thought would be inconceivable started to happen. Just like the sheer ridiculousness and the nonsense the anime devolved into, I just had to know what'll happen next. School Days is unique, a premise I've never seen executed the way the anime did, and that's why it was such a train wreck that I needed to see till the end. It was just revelation after revelation. It started as a cute, sometimes questionable romance, to betrayal and infidelity, to abandonment, bullying, denial, and sexual immorality. The anime is so unpredictable that if you looked away for 1 second, you'd be wondering how the hell you ventured so far off course in the matter of 3 seconds. School Days was basically a manual of what not to do in romance, and they played that part to a T. And at the center of this absolute circus was Makoto, the kind of character who somehow managed to take every wrong turn imaginable. It was clear he was operating on a different moral compass than everyone else. I wanted to give him that benefit of the doubt. He's just a teenager who's young and dumb, but that started to crumble as his actions and lack of accountability made him so indefensible. A character like Makoto comes once in a blue moon. He's the type of character you'd only see on the internet. This guy isn't real. He doesn't exist, right? He infuriated me so much, yet I couldn't help but see where treading this line would eventually leave him. And in School Days fashion, we were given the shit show of the culture festival and that ending that we're all so familiar with. It was poetic justice. And to really bring the point home, amidst all the chaos, the only thing I was able to do was to just uncontrollably laugh, questioning everything and anything as it unfolded before my very eyes. And for Pete's sakes, when I thought it couldn't get any worse, after Makoto's infidelity was broadcasted for the entire school to see, the anime doubled down and had him engage in a foursome. And on top of that, he got Sekai pregnant. And he still bangs one of her best friends. I have no clue. Instead of being a responsible person for once in his life, he claimed that Sekai was lying and pushed all the responsibility onto her. When the entire school was gossiping about this guy, bro lost all of his friends. Nobody wanted to interact with him any longer, and he had just committed generational amounts of reputational suicide. I'm reflecting all the shit he's done up until this point. I didn't know whether to feel joy because he's finally experiencing consequences, or angry that he's learned nothing from this exchange. But as if all that chaos wasn't enough, the show decides to throw in this one moment that completely broke me in the funniest way possible. There's this scene where I nearly died of asphyxiation. During a bonfire dance, Sekai asks Makoto, "I'm your girlfriend, right?" And it pans to Makoto's face, smiling, but his expression gradually turns into a frown. The ending song cues and the episode fades to black. It was something so minor, so insignificant, but held so much symbolism. It was a testament to this guy's inability to commit. Like, I don't know what the hell I was expecting. I know I'm talking a lot about Makoto, but he's literally the root of all evil in this anime. Probably the only redeemable characters in this anime, even if I must stretch it, are Setsuna, Sekai's best friend, and Kotonoha, who did not deserve any of this. Another thing why I despise yet love about this anime is how the characters made me feel, specifically how watching the anime can evoke such visceral reactions within me that I just start having a one-sided sparring match with my monitor. Like, hell nah, I do not feel any sympathy for Sekai when she discovered Makoto cheating on her. I really wanted to sympathize with her. I really did. At some point, Sekai was aware that what she was doing was wrong, and yet progressively she either tried to justify it or ignore it entirely. She had betrayed Kotonoha's trust, and she reaped what she sowed. So no, she can cry all she wants. That's how Kotonoha felt. Despite all of the betrayal and chaos, I couldn't look away for a second. Watching this anime was like watching reality TV. With a cast of immature high schoolers, I never felt so angry, bitter, and entertained all at once. This was the effect that School Days had, and is probably why I've actually rewatched and even played the visual novel so many times that I've died of old age twice. Like I said, this is a cry for help. I am not in sound mind, but there's one quote I live by that could explain why this shit show is my greatest guilty pleasure. If it makes you feel like shit, it's good. And did I feel like shit when I watched this nuclear fallout? But in all seriousness, School Days, buried under all the chaos, portrays adolescent romance through hedonistic lens. It's an anime that deconstructs the nature of said romance and the harem genre, offering dark consequences of manipulation, dishonesty, and selfish desires within relationships. In order to portray these concepts, School Days introduces and explores more presentable themes to the audience that consists of first loves and relationships, jealousy, and selfishness. As we traverse deeper, the anime explores the consequence of impulsivity, teenage immaturity, and lack of communication, all three that may influence the nature of one's relationship. And from these narratives, School Days is a cautionary tale, albeit an extreme one, about the fragile nature of young love and the angst associated with it during a vulnerable time. We see manifestations of these themes in its characters. Makoto is a manifestation of many of these traits. He represents the hedonistic desires of man in the pursuit of self-indulgence, mistaking pleasure as love. He represents cowardice through his ineptitude for accountability, a reluctance to communicate, and deflecting blame. He is arrogant and inconsiderate, pursuing that to which brings him satisfaction without the consideration of others nor its implications, which inevitably speaks to the immorality he embodies. Likewise with Sekai, she represents a duality between victim and perpetrator. On one hand, she's enabled Makoto to go down this wretched path, while also drifting in this moral landscape where she bounces between knowing what she's doing is wrong, while also choosing inaction. She's part of the problem, but she also becomes victimized in the end by the same person she enabled. She is the manifestation of the irrational actions that stem from an unrequited love and regret due to her involvement in Makoto and Kotonoha's initial get-together. And Kotonoha, she is representative of what is pure and how that innocence can erode through a breakdown of trust, betrayal, and isolation. Her character goes through a gradual and subtle breakdown that involves every facet of her character, whether physical, emotional, or psychological, insofar as to result in extreme actions. The most interesting evaluation of Kotonoha's psyche has to be her refusal and denial in maintaining her relationship and love for Makoto in discovering his infidelity. It was intriguing to see her cling onto hope and even attempt to shape herself to fit the image of what is desirable to Makoto, instead of what is reasonable to maintain her dignity. Her character arc is indicative of how even the most modest and innocent person can be taken advantage of, and what that says about human nature. In the end, School Days takes these characters and uses them less as people and more as vehicles for chaos, emotion, and consequence. Each of them embodies a different facet of adolescent love gone wrong, and together they form a messy, volatile cocktail of desire, insecurity, and self-destruction. It's not subtle nor is it graceful, but that's what makes it so compelling. There's an oddly fascinating exploration of how love, when twisted by selfishness and immaturity, can spiral into something unrecognizable, something dark, almost grotesque, and it's that descent, as absurd as it gets, that makes School Days the chaotic, guilty pleasure that it is. And again, School Days is in no way, shape, or form a good show. Objectively, it's terrible. For an anime that spirals faster than a Category 5 hurricane, all it leaves in its wake is a disaster. But that's the same reason why I love this show. I was caught up in the storm and ended up under a fallen building, with my head struck so bad that I sustained irreversible brain damage. But that's all fine, because in the end, it all works out. I love this anime because it shows the worst in humanity in a comedic yet chaotic way. It's like playing a video game with your friend and you're spectating them after dying. You can't help but laugh uncontrollably because of the idiocy that's transpiring before your eyes. It's that constant train wreck and limitless amounts of melodrama that allows for the anime to be nonsensical enough to laugh at. I love that this anime makes me stop and question what the hell is happening on screen, and getting into intense screaming matches with a budget Ash Ketchum that ignores every single one of my pleads. This anime is just a full-on soap opera, a disaster made just for me. Like I mentioned before, if it makes you feel like shit, it's good. School Days has cemented itself as a guilty pleasure of mine because of its absurdity. I think what makes it stand out is the fact that the anime wants you to feel like crap. It wants you to hate it, to detest Makoto, these situations, everything, and the anime succeeded in its goal. And of course, we can't forget the infamous ending. Makoto finally gets what's coming to him in the most brutal way possible, and Kotonoha, well, let's just say she takes moving on to a whole new level. It's poetic justice wrapped in a psychological horror. That ending was the cherry on top of this already unhinged dumpster fire. A finale so outrageous that it cemented School Days as a one-of-a-kind experience. If it were a cruise, it'd be a maritime tragedy, making the Titanic look like child's play. And it would be a long while until we can get a nice boat like that again. It's messy, it's ridiculous, it's borderline traumatizing, and I would not have it any other way.